Good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. You are welcome to another exciting webinar for simplifying data analytics, making informed decisions in a data-driven world. This webinar is to shed light on the significance of data analytics in empowering individuals and industries to make informed decisions. It aims to allow the proactive utilization of data to begin insight and drive meaningful conversations and outcomes, ultimately enhancing personal, professional, and industry-wide growth. So I will begin now by introducing our lead moderator for today, who will help us pilot the event, and followed by the panelist. But I won't be doing that alone. I'll be doing that with my colleague, Olamide Adeleke. Olamide Adeleke, are you active?
Yeah, Mr. Farouk, good morning. Yes, I'm active. I'm with you, very much with you.
Okay, all panelists should please turn on their camera and unmute themselves, and the moderators as well. Please turn on your cameras. Thank you. So I'll start by introducing our lead moderator for today. His name is Sami Tunji. He is a writer, financial analyst, researcher, and a lover of literature. Former associate of managing editor of the defunct Expound. His creative works have been published on various platforms, such as Bombay Review, Heart Online, and Provo Canyon Review. His creative non-fiction pieces have been selected for the Igby Prize essay by the Kalahari Review in 2019 and longlisted for 2020 Pornography Prize of the Satire. He co-created and co-edited Government Speaking, an anthology of NYC travels, which was published by the Fortunate Traveler and the Baron's Cave in 2021. Currently, he is a business correspondent with Punch newspaper, a freelance researcher, an African Liberty Writer Fellow for 2023 to 2024. Please indicate by introducing yourselves, just say hi to us so we see.
Hi, Farouk. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the kind introduction. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much, Sam. So my colleague Olamide Adeleke will introduce the first panelist for today. Let's hear him, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Adeleke Olamide, and it's lovely to have everyone on this webinar. I'll go by introducing the first person, which is Dr. Taiwo Ibitomi. Dr. Taiwo Ibitomi is an accomplished educator and expert in business administration and human resource management. With a distinguished academic journey, he earned a first-class degree in business administration from Achievers University in Uwo and completed his PhD in business administration with a focus on human resource management in 2021. Dr. Ibitomi has an extensive background in both private organization and secondary school education, having served as a supervisor, manager, principal, and lecturer. Currently, a lecturer lecturer at various institutions and serves as a consultant to schools in Abuja and Nasarawa State. He has an impressive record of over 30 journal publications and has presented and international conference. Dr. Ibitomi is a member of professional institutes in Nigeria and abroad, including the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management of Nigeria, ACIPM, and the National Institute of Marketing of Nigeria. He has also contributed to his community through involvement in various leadership roles, including as president of Benue Student Union. Thank you very much. I would like Dr. Taiwo, if he's there, to just say hello to everyone at the webinar. Dr. Taiwo, are you there, please? Dr. Taiwo? Okay. If Dr. Taiwo isn't there, my colleague, Mr. Farouk, to go on to read the second panelist on our webinar.
Yeah, thank you, Adeleke Olamide. As we wait for Dr. Taiwo to say hi to us, we shall proceed to the next panelist. The next panelist is Gladys Atoza. He's a data quality officer with a proven ability to ensure data integrity and accuracy while identifying and resolving data quality issues. She has a first degree in microbiology from Birmingham University, and a master's degree in public health from the University of South Wales. As a data quality officer, she specializes in utilizing SaaS and startup packages for data analysis. Despite not having a statistical background, Gladys has built capacity and developed skills in maintaining data quality, standard and improving processes and streamlined data management. Over the last 5 years, Gladys has worked on several surveys and evaluation research in developing and testing data collection tools, developing SOPs to guide the data collection process, and has supported data analysis on this project. She believes that quality and accuracy data starts with quality data collection tools where trained data collectors. In order to ensure best practice in data collection, Gladys has trained and supervised hundreds of individuals across several projects. Furthermore, she has helped grow and train scores of individuals on how to use SaaS and startup for the purpose of data analysis in various fields of work. Let's welcome Gladys. Please say hello to us. Huh?
Morning. Thank you, everyone. It's nice to be here.
Thank you very much, Gladys. Olamide, please move on to the next panelist.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Gladys. On to the next panelist now. We shall be introducing Ms. Madhu. Ms. Madhu is a business development analyst in the international development sector. She uses her skills in research analysis and interpretation of financial and management information to solve operational bottlenecks that hinder innovation and operational agility. As business development analyst, she uses data to transform and optimize business processes and scale them up to become corporate policy. Madhu has an extensive background in the private and not-for-profit sectors in risk and compliance, grant management, capacity development, and market development. In National of Botswana, Madhu has worked across various international markets, yet she has an undeniable and steadfast dedication to the African continent, its heritage, its people, and its future. She holds an MBA from a university in Japan and is currently studying for an MSc in global health at the University of Maryland. All right, so if we have Madhu there, I would like for her to tell or say hi to everyone, please.
Hello, good morning. Happy to be here.
Yeah, good morning. How are you doing?
All good, all good.
All right, thank you very much for that. So I'll hand over the microphone now to Mr. Farouk to read the next person on our panel, is the profile.
Thank you very much, Adeleke. The last panelist for today is Ebenezer Olonwo. He's a co-founder, DevOps engineer, and COO of Hyperdrive Technology Limited, an Abuja-based education tech startup, focused on delivering innovative solutions to tertiary education in Africa. He's a certified project management professional PMP with the PMI and has 15 years of experience with the ground in finance and technology. So, welcome, Mr. Ebenezer. Please kindly say hi to us.
Hello, good morning. Thank you for having me as a panelist today. It's my honor and privilege to share insights about the field I play in, about the industry, and how it relates to data analytics. So thank you very much for having me today.
Thank you very much, Ebenezer. And if Dr. Taiwo Ibitomi is here, please kindly say hi to us, sir. So try your presence. Is Dr. Taiwo here yet? Okay. So when we begin, and also Dr. Taiwo, I believe that he will join us in halfway, then we'll continue with that. So we'll be passing the microphone to Sammy, who will pilot the event for today as the lead moderator. Sammy, please kindly begin.
Yeah, thank you very much, Farouk. It's a pleasure once again to be here. Before we begin the conversation in full, I would like to start with a quote by Geoffrey Moore, a management consultant and author of Crossing the Chasm. He said, "Without big data analytics, companies are blind and deaf, wandering out onto the web like a deer on a freeway." And I think that quote emphasized the essence of data analytics, especially when it comes to decision-making, even company growth. So I'm hoping that the conversations we have for roughly the next 2 hours or less will provide more insight into the role and relevance of big data, of data analytics generally. So I'll start with my former instructor, Miss Gladys. Hi, it's nice to see you again. Even this is virtually.
Hi, Sam. It's nice to see you again too.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So as a data quality expert, kindly provide us with an overview of the role data analytics play in today's world. What exactly is the significance of data analytics when it comes to making informed decisions in organizations from your personal experience?
Okay, thank you so much for that question. I would like to start off by helping you understand that data analytics is not just one thing. It's not one big complex thing that is difficult to understand. By definition, data analytics is a process that involves data collection, sorting and cleaning that data, analyzing it, and presenting it in a way that is easy to understand, that is through data visualization. However, based on that decision, I can prove to you that data analytics is being used, the concept of data analytics is being used in our daily lives. You do not have to be a data analytics specialist to be using it. Think about all the decisions you make as an individual on a daily basis. You decided to wake up by 7 o'clock every morning to go to work. How did you make that decision? You took certain things into consideration. How long it takes you to get ready, how long it takes you to get to your place of work, if you have to make any stops along the way. You are already analyzing and collecting and analyzing information to make a decision on what time you need to wake up in the morning. You can see that it is involved in our everyday lives as individuals. Now, bringing that down to organizations, knowing how important data is in our world today is dangerous to actually make any decision without data to back it up. Like the quotes that Samson just said, making decisions without data is like moving blind and moving deaf. Data analytics, because of how intricate it is, it presents a number of opportunities. One of the things it does for you is that it provides insights and trends into trends and patterns that help organizations make decisions. Once you have data, you don't have to be the one to collect the data. You can rely on already existing data to give you information about products, to give you information about sales and markets and how a particular project is going to run and what's the time period for it running is going to be. Organizations that leverage on data analytics have a competitive advantage. And I'm going to use an example that we all know very well. Think about Hilda Bassi and how she broke the world record. When we heard about Hilda Bassi, it seemed as if she came out of nowhere. However, if you listen to the story, she had collected her data, analyzed it, used the information she got from past experiences of other winners to determine how to go about this competition. And she was able to break the world record. Think about other people that came after her trying to break the world record. They saw what she did, and using that information alone, decided to embark on the same journey. We saw how their own feat ended. Now, think about an organization doing the same thing. We have two organizations, one relying on data that has already been collected, analyzing that data and using it to determine how to be more efficient as an organization, how to improve sales or intervention. Another organization that is using intuition or guesswork. The output will be different. Another thing that data analytics does is that it saves you time and it saves you resources. Once you are using data to make your decisions, you know where to push your funding to, you know where to push your human resources to. You're not wasting time trying to guess what the next move is or doing trial and error. It also shows you areas where your organization is being efficient and areas that need to be strengthened. You know which staff need more help, which departments need more help, and which department needs to be pushed forward because they are already doing very well. So in conclusion, it is very important for every organization to at least involve itself in the very basics of data analytics. It's important for growth. It's important for meeting customers' needs. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that brilliant input. Farouk, whenever Dr. Taiwo comes on, please just inform me, probably send me a message or something, so that I'll also move along with you. Yeah. So thank you, Ms. Gladys.
I'm on already.
I don't know. Is it Madu or Madu? Can you
Dr. Taiwo is on already.
Yeah, Dr. Taiwo is here.
Okay. Yeah. Welcome.
Thank you. I've been on for a while.
Oh, okay. You were earlier introduced, and we're hoping that you just say hello to everyone. But it's a pleasure to have you, sir. It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Let me say good morning, everyone.
Okay.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So I think now that we have you, I should just hit you with a question.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So you're an expert in human resource management and business development or business administration. So how would you say data analytics have shaped HR decisions in the management and also in the hiring process over the years from your experience? How has data analytics been crucial in HR decisions?
Okay, thank you. By looking at these questions that you just had today, we simply look at three major aspects from that question: the data analytics, human resource decisions, and hiring process. Based on the explanations of the first presenter, she talked about what data analytics is all about. But when we talk about data analytics, we are simply talking about the science of analyzing raw data to make conclusions about a particular information. You now see that today, data analytics simply help a business to optimize its performance. It simply helps them in terms of efficiency, maximizations of profit, or make more strategic guided decisions. So you look at the HR decisions. In HR decisions, it involves all about people's process. And when we refer to decision making in HR, it means all people's process are simply involved. So the decisions are taken within these functions or by it. So it simply covers employee cycle from the time we have a potential identifications of talent to the hiring, performance management, to compensations, and even to an exit of an employees. And that is what human resources decisions deals with. When you look at the hiring process in HR is a step or process of finding or selecting and hiring new employees to a company. So when you look at hiring process in HR, it involves three major segments. You talk about the planning, you talk about the recruitment, and you talk about employees selections. So when you now understand these three phenomena with respect to your questions, we can now look at answering your question in a proper manner. How does data analytics shape human resources decisions? It can shape human resources decision in some of these ways. One, it will simply help them to gain a deeper understanding of their workforce. And that is very, very critical when you are dealing with HR. So it also identifies the patterns and trends that may impact on productivity in terms of the engagement and the retentions of an employees. And that is very, very critical. It also makes a data-driven decisions when it comes to talent acquisitions, which every employer must be sensitive with as far as the organization is concerned. So it ensures that the right candidates are hired for the right roles. And if that is not done, automatically an organization is simply going to have an issue or problem. Then we also look about enhancement. It enhances employees' engagement, particularly in terms of their initiatives, so that they can be able to identify what we call drivers of satisfactions. And when there is a drivers of satisfactions, automatically an employees will be able to give in their best. Another issue you also look at is identifications of skills gap. You have to identify the skills gap that are available. You have to look at the training needs. You have to also look at the enabling targeting learning in order to develop programs that will align with organizational goals. So the last one I will say here is that it must be able to measure or monitor and measure the impact of HR initiatives and interventions so that it can simply allow what we call a continuous improvement and course corrections when it is needed. These are some of the ways by which data analytics can simply shape HR decisions in management. Then another one that is related is that how can data analytics now shape hiring process? And that is why you look at, particularly in developing countries today, a lot of the organizations are missing it, and they are missing it as a result of their hiring process. Now, let us look at it. I made mention of 3 areas that are very critical in the hiring process in the first instance. I made mention of planning, I made mention of recruitment, and I made mention of employee selections. These 3 areas are very, very key. And human resource experts must ensure that they make justice to this so that the organizations can be able to grow in terms of their goals. So by the time you look at the recruiters now, the recruiters make use of data analytics. The world has grown now that sometimes even in bringing in an employee, in advertising your job or whatsoever, it is done based on internet. It is done based on social media, and a lot of them. And these are being used through what we call data analytics in terms of both hard and soft skills when you want to identify them. So in terms of planning, you do planning here with respect to modeling and forecasting in the modern world. And as a result of that, for you to be able to do modeling and forecasting, data analytics is very, very key. And that will make a better business decisions in terms of areas, maybe with respect to turnover and so on and so forth. In terms of the selection, which is the last one, you can simply get the best through what we call data analytics, because selections involves a lot of process. And therefore, for you to be able to get this process right, automatically, you must deploy data analytics so that you can be able to choose the right employees for organizations at workplace. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Taiwo. That was pretty insightful, looking at how data analytics can be applied in a different stage of the hiring process. I'll move on to Ms. Madu. To confirm, is it Madu or Maduo?
That's Maduo.
Maduo.
Yes.
Okay. Nice to meet you. Hello from Nigeria to Botswana. So your major field is in the international development space sector. There are a lot of global challenges, from increasing poverty rate to climate issues and the likes. A whole lot of global challenges happening almost at the same time. How can data analytics be deployed in addressing a number of these, especially the critical ones like increasing poverty, high global debt, climate issues, and the likes, even insecurity? How can international development organizations leverage data analytics to provide solutions, relevant solutions within the sector?
All right, well, to answer this, I'm going to have to take you back to 2015 when the world agreed upon a new set of global goals that we call the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs in short. These are sort of like a universal call to improve the lives of all people and the planet we live in by 2030. Like you mentioned earlier on, there's poverty, there's health issues, and so many other social ills. So one common phrase we use to describe the end goal is to leave no one behind. And this year, 2023, is actually the midpoint of the 15-year period that we had set up to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. So we need to track where we are on this journey at the local, regional, or global scale, or just in your neighborhood, you know, what has worked, what hasn't, and we can adjust accordingly. I think it was just Dr. Taiwo who mentioned using data analytics for course correction earlier on the discussion. And the only way to reflect on the world's progress towards achieving any of the development goals, and maybe to highlight future interventions or course correct, is to look at the data and what it is telling us. So not only is data key to making informed decisions, but it's also how the international organizations remain accountable to the many people we serve. You know, how's the world doing in terms of, say, child mortality rates or reducing poverty? You know, what has worked and where has it worked? So to keep track of where we are and to amplify success where it has worked, we need to assess progress and just showcase interventions that have made a difference. So the data revolution has, without a doubt, been an enabler in the international development space, but it's also how we monitor progress and just ensure that there's inclusive engagement of stakeholders at all ages. I mean, at all stages. I also want to mention that there are legitimate concerns regarding risks associated with handling and processing of big data, particularly in the absence of a common set of principles on data privacy and data protection. I'm not only talking about individual privacy, but we also need to consider the potential effects of data on groups of individuals. You know, the right to privacy is a fundamental human right. And while we recognize that the social value of data, or just what data can do for a business, international organizations need to set the standard and the tone for moral and ethical conduct when big data is being used. You know, I couldn't think of this when our HR colleague was talking just now. I feel like some people just like to take all sorts of information, especially when he mentioned social media. So one thing I would like for all of us to keep in mind is that data should always be accessed or analyzed or even used, taking into account the legitimate interest of those individuals whose data is being used, you know.
Yes, Madio, yeah, you're very, very correct. I think recently the Nigerian Data Protection Commission announced that it's investigating over 100 companies for alleged data breaches. So I think it's a very, very critical topic of discussion, how companies handle data, how they handle process, how they even collect data. It's very important to follow the appropriate means. And I think the good news for us Nigerians is that earlier this year, our president signed the Data Protection Act into law. So hopefully the next stage is beyond signing the act, the bill into law. Next stage is implementation and ensuring that full compliance across different companies and all. So let's hope that the world is making progress towards respecting data privacy. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. So I'll be speaking with Mr. Ebenezer next as a project management professional. Cloud computing, I believe, plays a major role in how you manage and handle data, how you even store data. I think I was speaking with the Chief Information Officer of MTN some days back, and he mentioned that a number of their services have been moved to the cloud. So as a professional in this field, how does cloud computing play a role in enabling efficient data storage for data analytics initiatives? I think maybe you're still muted, Mr. Ebenezer. You may have to unmute yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. So thank you very much. I've been listening to my fellow panelists give meaningful insights from their point of view. I mean, I'm so glad to be listening to them. We talk about data, you know, some things comes to mind, right? We talk about where do you store the data, all right? So that it doesn't get compromised. Because if your data is meant to help you take informed decisions as soon as possible, if possible in real time. Okay, so how do you maintain the integrity of that data? Will you be able to access it at the time you need it? If I need to make a decision, maybe a national decision, a worldwide decision, within an hour, within 10 minutes, how important is that data now, right? And so it's not just about putting them all together and doing machinations around data. There are a lot of things we need to consider. And data storage have a way to help us get the best out of data analytics. And and here comes cloud computing to help solve or to give answers to most of these questions I just asked. And for those who are still new to cloud computing, I will just talk briefly about what cloud computing is. It is in a nutshell a technology that allows individuals, organizations to access and use computing resources. When I mean computing resources, talk about servers, storage, databases, networking, software, all the analytics over the internet. Now it's referred to as the cloud. Okay, traditionally, you want to own your infrastructure before cloud config comes in. So it means governments, organizations, or individuals who want to own their data, own their servers, own their data storage. And you find out that it is quite expensive, first of all, because you need to think about how do you store this, how do you secure it. A lot of people have in-house data centers, which means you need to provide power to it 24/7 in this part of the world where power is still a challenge to a large extent. You see that it becomes a burden, right? And cloud computing allows us to transfer this risk, this cost to organizations, these cloud providers who are able to solve for all of these issues that companies or individuals who host their data privately could have faced. And they're able to use that using the economies of scale because they're serving a large number of people. All right. So instead of owning and maintaining physical infrastructure, users, companies can rent or lease these resources from cloud providers on a pay-as-you-go basis. And see, so how do I mean by that? So cloud computing plays a pivotal role, really. And I'm going to talk about some point. Please do not forget that we're talking about technology mainly here. Technology is always evolving. But I'm going to talk about a couple of points how cloud computing can make data storage more efficiently for analytics and decision makers. The first point is a no-brainer. When you apply cloud computing, you have cost efficiency. Imagine if I need to set up, first of all, if I need to set up a data storage center for myself or my company, look at the physical investment I need. First of all, I need a location, right? Either I break down the section of my office space for that purpose, remodel it to fit, to make it sure it's secured, it's well air conditioned, it has redundant power. If I don't have that space, I need to go rent a bigger office space, right? I need to buy servers, I need to buy network equipment, I need to buy racks. I need to also employ and train the personnel that will mount it. We're still not talking about the data right now. We're just talking about the underlying infrastructure that will enable me to do the thing I want to do. With cloud computing, I could do all of that in a few seconds. I could have the server I want, the processing power I want, within a few seconds, right? I could do all of that and make it so I can go straight to the business of the day. All right. And I can do that. I can do that at the fraction of the cost. I don't have to invest in big equipment. Like I say, I need this also amount of processing power over the next 5 hours. And I can access it, process what I need to process, store the ones I need to store, and shut down the processing power. that's a game changer, right? That's a game changer. It means individuals, organizations who do not have the massive budgets, who are not used to or open to using great processing powers for analytics, now can access it anytime they want. So cost efficiency is really number one, right? What other things do cloud computing bring to the table when it comes to data storage? Number two would be scalability. Scalability is a time that defines how you're able to expand, how easily you're able to expand. So if my data needs are expanding, cloud computing allows you to not think about how do I budget to expand my infrastructure. The data can expand as you need it, all right? So it's able to expand, and at peak period, expands your resources. And when you don't need them, it shuts them down and scales them down. So cloud computing is very flexible when it comes to that. And a third point would be accessibility. Like I said earlier, it's not good enough to have the right data, or you need to be able to access it when you want it. And so what cloud computing have been able to provide for us is make your data accessible with an internet connection, of course, but from anywhere in the world. You can work with remote teams scattered all over the world, and you guys are accessing the same set of data sets and analyzing and obtaining what you need from your data sets. That is very important. Also, I want to talk about, maybe lastly on this section, because there are a lot to talk about, I can talk about redundancy and durability. What do I mean by that? Cloud computing allows us to be able to store our data in multiple servers across multiple geographical spaces. It means that if one server data center goes down, for example, your data is not lost because data is still available from another location. So to the end user, everything is fine, right? So Cloud is able to replicate your data, our data, across different edge locations, and so that when one goes off, the user is still able to access their data and continue to make decisions they want to make. Time will not permit me to talk about security. Cloud providers provide a lot of infrastructure when it comes to security. How about data lifecycle management? You could choose how you want to manage your lifecycle. Which data do you need for a large period of time, for example? There are some data that you might not need beyond, say, a day or two, or even a couple of months, because you're processing and there are scraps that can be generated and you want to do it with that. So you could set all of this and say, this data is needed for so period, but this set of data is needed to be kept for longer, maybe 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. And there are other things that influences that decision. It could be compliance, it could be how sensitive the data is, and other things. But the thing is, cloud computing allows you to be able to tear out your data needs, your data lifecycle. So I will stop here. There are a lot of things that cloud computing brings to the table that makes not just storing the data for analytics more efficient, it actually makes data analytics a lot more reliable and efficient. Thank you.
Very much. Thank you so much, Mr. Ebenezer. That's pretty enlightening. So before I proceed to the next set of questions, for those joining us and those still with us, if you have any questions for any of our panelists, maybe a follow-up question on anything being said, kindly drop it in the comments section. Then we can read out or find a way to indicate, and we can allow you to ask your questions. Thank you very much. So I move to Ms. Gladys. earlier you mentioned the case of either Basi and how she was able to do her research, gather data before doing the Guinness, the cooking competition for the Guinness Book of Records. So are there any real life examples, especially within corporate organizations, that you can provide on how data analytics have significantly improved decision making? I don't know if she's still there. Ms. Gladys, are you still there?
I think she's having connection issues.
Oh, okay. Okay, while we wait for her, let me go to Mr. Dr. Taiwo. So earlier, Mado mentioned the issue of data privacy, generally the ethics of data collection, data processing, and all. So as a lecturer in business administration, can you provide more insight into the ethical consideration that organizations should prioritize when integrating data analytics into their HR decision process, especially regarding privacy and advancing technology? Recently, there are issues around AI and data breaches. To what extent can AI be used for certain things, and there are conversations around that. So as an expert, how can you provide us with insight around the ethical issues when it comes to using data, and what should companies pay attention to, especially in the HR process? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. When we are talking about data privacy, it is a very fundamental issue in data analytics, particularly big data mining. So you now see that the privacy has to do with protections of personal data from those who should not have access to them. And it is simply the ability of individuals to determine, or companies to determine, who can have access to their personal information. And that is very, very key. We can see in the world today, there are a lot of hackers who simply intrude into companies, organizations, and do a lot of things, even institutions. So as a result of that, in HR profession, it is very, very key that an organization should pay more attention to some critical areas. And some of these critical areas includes data that has to do with their recruitment, the one that has to do with their training and development, the one that has to do with attractions and retentions, the one that has to do with benefit and compensations, and the one that has to do with employees' productivity. In all, they must be able to protect the interests of their organizations in terms of their inflow and their outflow. So you now see in HR, in advancing technology, particularly in the modern world, we have what we call HR data analytics. HR data analytics are very, very key because they simply deals with the people's process. And as a result of that, the information about the individuals, information about the companies, with respect to their assets, with respect to their goals, visions, and all, they are all in this process. And as a result of that, it must be well protected. There are some that the public can have access to, and there are some that the public may not have access to, and that must be well secured. So in HR, since the HR deals with the entire workforce on how they carry out the activities, it is very, very sensitive that some of these information should not be made known to outsiders, because if they are made known to outsiders, they are very, very difficult, and it may simply implicate the organization in its entities. So what we are saying here is that with respect to this, organization must ensure that in their HR decision-making process, with respect to data privacy and advancing technology, there should be a kind of a cloud that can be able to protect them from unseen hands. What I mean unseen hands is that some of these unseen hands are actually well informed about data analysis. So what an organization, one of the ethical issues that an organization must do, in essence, is that professionalism must be hired. An organization must ensure that they hire professional personnel to mount their database so that they can be secured from the hands of hackers and others that may want to intrude to implicate the organization. I want us to even note here that not only that, even competitors use some of these hackers to get information to ensure that they weigh down the other organizations. And that is why it is very, very key that sensitive information should be protected. Not even, there should be, even within the organization itself, there should be an information that will relate to particular levels of it. Because in our organization, we have 3 levels. We have the top levels, we have the middle levels, and we have the lower levels. So the access to information, as far as the organization is concerned, should be based on the levels and categories at which an organization and individuals occupy. And if that is done, we can simply see that you can be able to protect some certain issues. Because even in an organization, an employees may also be used to bring out some information in a form of what we call paid form. And those are some of the issues that HR personnel are facing today, particularly those that are not critically well informed when it comes to data technology. So HR must ensure that their database with respect to each employees are protected from the hands of intruder. And let me just say this, because I majorly focus on institutions. This happened some years back in universities of Ilorin, that all the students' informations were lost to the hands of hackers. And it took them a lot of time before they could be able to restore some of these things back, because the level at which some of these hackers work, because they work at a very high level, and so there must be a situations where data's information of employees are protected from outsiders. Thank you.
Much. Thank you very much. So the example you gave, I think it's also happened in about university. I think it's also happened with Covenant University, also, or one other university. So it's very important as data operators or data processors to safeguard and maintain the ethics of data privacy when handling data. Thank you very much, Dr. Taiwo. So is Miss Gladys with us now? I think she has
Yes, I am.
disappeared.
Sorry.
Oh, okay.
I'm here.
Welcome back, my instructor.
Thank you.
So earlier when you were speaking, you mentioned the example of Ida Bassi and how she was able to do her research, collect relevant data before the cooking competition for the Guinness Book of Record. Now, let's try and situate that within a corporate organizations. Are there any real-life examples of how data analytics can significantly improve decision-making based on your own personal experience or any real-life organization that you are aware of?
Okay, I'm going to use my own organization as an example and how we handled the COVID-19 pandemic, right? So when the COVID-19 pandemic hit the world, the major challenge then was that there was no information about this virus, and so people were at a loss. However, through data that was collected from people who presented themselves in hospitals, a list of symptoms and indications were compiled and presented to the general public on how best to identify someone who is infected and then the steps that need to be taken when that happens. Now, during that period, my organization was involved in a lot of different processes that helped in this decision-making of the nation. So we worked together with NCDC. If you recall, there were about 30 or so passengers that had landed from England that period. We were tasked with the responsibility of following up on them to find out how their symptoms were progressing, if they had any symptoms at all. And so one of the things we did that period was contact tracing. Now, we used the information we got from the passengers to identify people who they had been exposed to and get those people isolated and then subsequently treated. Now, another thing that happened during that period, we had a Connect Center, a COVID-19 Connect Center. And in the COVID-19 Connect Center, calls were coming in from across the nation, giving us information on people who were ill and needed help, or people who were who they suspected were ill but were not being responsible about it. Now, during that period, we also experienced an outbreak in the organization. So what did we do? We had to make quick decision based on the available information that we had. The same way we're monitoring people, the passengers in the plane, we used the same method to monitor where the infection started from and bring everyone who had exposure to patient zero, in our own case, to get tested in the organization. Quick decisions had to be made, one of which was to bring those who could test for the medical personnel in charge of testing for COVID-19 to the organization, so that, because people were afraid, obviously, to go to testing centers to get tested. So we used that information to bring them together to one place, have everybody tested, have those who were positive isolated, and then subsequent treatment. Now, that was what happened in my own organization. However, let's look at what happened generally in our country. Quick decisions had to be made on courses of treatment. As we know, at that time, there was no cure or vaccine for COVID-19, but decisions had to be made to alleviate the symptoms of those who were going through it. That decision was made based on data, based on the information that had been collected. And since we are treating symptoms here, not the virus itself, our medical personnel needed to use data to make to decide course of treatment. If you also recall, during that time, we had a lot of data visualization. Every time you turned on your TV to listen to the news, you will see statistics on those who were reported to be infected, those who were confirmed, and then those who had subsequently died. That information helped distribution of PPEs, and we're getting this information real time. We're getting it by states, by local governments. So the government was able to decide where resources should go to, where PPE should go to, how to set up isolation centers, the kind of supply of medication we needed. And then when it came to the time of the COVID-19 vaccine, decision was also made based on what was best for the general public. Yes, we knew that the vaccine seemed to have come as quickly as possible, but once it was vetoed that they were safe for use, the government decided to bring them in. During that same time period, my organization was involved in the COVID-19 household sero survey because we found out that there was a low testing rate across the nation. So if there's low testing rate, it means that the disease is still being spread, but we do not have a true picture of what it is. So the COVID-19 sero prevalence survey was embarked upon to determine what the true prevalence of the COVID-19 was in the country and in select states so that it can give a clearer picture and inform decision makers on the best way to handle spread and prevention of the infection, prevention of spread of the infection rather. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. Looking at how data analytics can be used, especially in a pandemic like COVID-19, that was very insightful. As a kind of follow-up to that, Madio, earlier you mentioned sustainable development goals, the SDGs, and how they provide a kind of metrics towards addressing global challenges, global issues. So in what specific ways is data analytics employed or used in achieving this particular goals? Are there any specific examples you can also give us, Madio?
I'll give you an example of a cause or a goal that I'm very passionate about, which is to do with global health. One of the SDGs, number 3, is it talks about ensuring healthy lives and promoting well-being for all people at all ages. So we need reliable health related statistics to understand the status of healthcare delivery in any community around the world. Somebody here mentioned the need to access data in real time earlier on, and Gladys just spoke about contact tracing during COVID. And that's just the kind of world we live in now. You know, I don't know what was your experience in Nigeria, but contact tracing in Botswana broke down pretty quickly, and we lost track of the infection rate. We lost sight of the whole thing pretty early on, and that's because we are struggling with limited resources. And I like to stress this from the point of low middle income countries, because we have a shortage of healthcare providers due to migration. There's a shortage of medical supplies. It's just poor healthcare infrastructure and inadequate financing. So that really puts focus on the question of how do we then prioritize and allocate what's available, you know, the limited resources. The promise of leaving no one behind in the context of healthcare means that no matter who you are or where you live, you are still able to receive quality health services when you need them without having to, you know, part with your money. And we need to better understand then how, where, and who the services should be targeted to continue making progress on that goal of expanding healthcare coverage. But there's still a need to understand where the gaps are in service coverage. So information is the only way we can inform policy and decision-making in terms of resource allocation. Take, for instance, something as measuring child growth. That's the data we need to understand, you know, the nutritional status of children in any community. And that information is critical to just helping policymakers or program managers and funders and researchers understand issues such as child malnutrition or stunted growth and links between other disease risk in a community.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madio. So before moving to the questions in the chat box, let me ask Mr. Ebenezer a quick question. So I think you mentioned earlier that about getting a paid storage facility and all that when deciding to adopt a particular cloud computing technology. So are there any key considerations you referred to? Is Mr. Ebenezer still with us?
Yes, sir.
I'm not sure. Okay, perfect. So are there any key considerations when selecting a cloud computing storage solution for data analytics project?
Oh, yeah, it is. There are, and it is a lot easier to do that now compared to a decade or so ago. And I would say it this way. Why I'm going to talk about some key points you should look at, that professionals should look at. If you are a layman, you don't have access to professionals in that sector, and you need to make a decision, it's easier to look at what the industry is saying. In essence, what am I saying? In essence, like there is safety in numbers, right? So if a particular set of providers have the chunk of the industry, right, worldwide, it's safe to say that they're probably doing a lot of things right? So that's what I would say. And I want to mention a statistics on, there's a site called statista.com, did a survey on the size of the cloud computing market as at Q2 of 2023 this year. I mean, we have companies like AWS taking in about 32% of that $65 billion industry. That was how much that was made in that quarter alone. So if a company is taking 32%, Microsoft 22%, Google 11%, the rest are shared by others like IBM, Alibaba, and Co. I just want to mention that to say that, hey, you could follow the crowd in deciding where. But beyond that, we need to talk about what are the specifics, beyond just following the crowd. Earlier, I talked about the ability to scale. Your cloud company should be able to give you access to either storage or performance whenever you need it, at the time you need it. So my panelists just talk about COVID. It was a trying period for everyone. Imagine when we have a lot of data coming in, influx of data that no one planned for a year before, right? If their infrastructure is not able, decision makers now, if the infrastructure is not able to take in and process such large amount of data, that would be a problem. Breakdown straight up, because in the absence of correct data, you're blind, So I want to say that ability for that provider to scale, not just in terms of storage capacity, but also in terms of performance. Performance in terms of the CPU speed and processing speeds, right? That provider needs to have that. Number two, I also mentioned about cost effectiveness, right? It has to fit your budget. So, of course, money is not all over the place, right? So you have a budget. So you're looking at a provider that is able to give you what you want or something tangible for your needs within your budget, right? I want to look at that as well. Number three, it should be able to give you some features that talks around cost monitoring and optimization. What do I mean by that? You should have, AWS has called budgets. You should be able to set limits. You need to be able to set alert systems. So if you have a budget for a particular week, a particular month, once your processing requirement is nearing that budget, that limit, financial limit, it needs to be able to alert you, not just on the dashboard, it should send you an email, send the decision makers an email, alert everyone, we're already midway and we're already hitting this limit. Okay, so that way you don't run into debt, right? You're trying to solve a problem, you now come up with another problem, which is a financial problem, right? So the correct provider should be able to give you features that allows you to set budgetary limits and be able to and alert systems as well that will alert you when you are nearing or about to exit that. And beyond that, it should be able to give you what I call access controls. Now, data is not meant for, data is about everybody, it's for everybody, but it is irresponsible, in my opinion, to say that information is meant for every eyes and every ears, right? So, because some data are very sensitive. So your cloud provider should give you opportunity to set proper user access controls on your data, know who has access to what and when. Another point I want to talk about would be the support and service level agreements. So look out for what they claim to be able to give you, right? What level of availability? If they say, oh, your data or our service will be available 95% of the time. So you need to ask yourself now, the 5%, how much does that mean to me in time and in money? What if those 5% time is when I need to make stringent and important decisions, right? You need to look at all of this. So most of the cloud providers offer 99.99% up to 11 nines. I want to look at that as well, okay? So SLAs are super important. You know exactly what they are offering you, what they are promising you, okay? Another thing I would say it's important is backup and recovery. Because cloud computing is able to offer you redundancy. And the main purpose of redundancy is to facilitate that your data is available when you need it. So if a natural disaster happens, say an earthquake or flooding in one location, you as the end user should not know the impact, right? You should still be able to access the data. So redundancy across multiple geographical locations. You want to find out your cloud provider's infrastructure spread. You know, it's super important you take a look at that. And earlier I talked about lifecycle management for your data. Are you able to archive some data? Are you able to make some data easily available? These things are super important when you're dealing with large data. There will be some data, you may not access for the next 5 years, but you need to keep them. Now, there is a general rule. You don't delete data. These are no data. You don't delete data at all. You rather archive them, okay? And providers have found a way to create a framework around that. For data you don't need to access often, they charge you very low cost. That's to encourage you to still keep those data, all right? So you don't delete data at all. So your cloud provider should be able to give you this functionality where you decide where to move data to and then save cost, right? So the data you need immediately and often could be more expensive to store and manage than data you may not access in the next 5, 10 years, right? And so what if anything happens? Like I said earlier, backup and recovery, your data provider, your cloud provider should be able to offer that. And importantly, I want to talk about regulations and compliance. Now, depending on the industry you're playing hard, right? There are certain compliance about how data is kept. There is compliance for health sector, right? How patients' records are meant to be kept. Okay, you want to find out that your cloud provider of choice is compliant with that. It's a way to transfer that risk because you would have been liable, right? But when you transfer that risk to them, they're able to take care of that, right? And so for people operating in EU, for example, there is a framework by the European Union, and the cloud provider needs to comply with those compliance. It applies to here as well. Just find out about your industry, find out about your government, your local government compliance regulations, right? And you want to ensure that whoever is handling your data for you has covered that aspect for you. I think I would take a stop at this point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ebenezer. But before you go, I still have some follow-up questions. And I think the first question on the chat box is also for you. Now, while speaking, you said that we don't delete data, we only archive them. So, but in the GDPR, I think GDPR, you also mentioned the need to stick to legislation and all that regulatory framework. There's the rights for a data subject to ask for user data to be deleted. So in such a case, will the data not be deleted, will it be archived? Wouldn't that be a breach of the regulatory framework? Then to the question on the chat box, when cloud data are deleted, can it be retrieved? And where do deleted data go to? Like, if a data is deleted, does it just completely disappear into thin air and cannot be retrieved? And the third question for you on the chat box is, can AI software access data stored in the cloud?
Okay.
So you have 4 questions.
Okay. Let me just dive right into it. Compliance is very, very important. Okay, the right side of the legal framework. All right. Yeah, it is super important. I must say this. Even the legal system, there are situations where people seal an information, right? When they seal an information, that means the others are not able to access it, right? But do not forget that no matter how we want to talk about it, every information belongs to the government. I know it's a touchy situation, right? So I've heard cases where the government security forces, especially in Nigeria, and I think I've heard about that in the US as well, get someone's phone and they get a court injunction like, we want to see what is on this phone because it is a matter of national security. Do you understand what I mean, right? So I'm just throwing these questions out there that not everything is black and white, okay? It's not a on and off, right and left kind of thing, okay? But can data be deleted? Honestly, I'm not sure if in the right and real sense of it, that it can be deleted, okay? I'm not so sure about that. But to the general population, yes, it can be made unavailable, okay? It can be made unavailable. Technology has gotten to a point where if you have the right brains and the right technology, nothing is impossible. Now, is it legal, right? And that is another thing we talk about. And that is why I said keeping to compliance is super important, okay? It is super, super important. I'll just leave it like that, that compliance will help us and guide us, okay? Where does deleted data go? I've merged those two questions together, right, to say that data is not meant to be deleted because you need that info. On 100 years' time, let me give you a good example. One of the things that actually, one of the earliest data when COVID hit, right, was the Spanish flu that occurred about 100 years ago, almost about 100 years, right? And people were able to look back to see pictures. I saw a picture of a baseball game, and they were all wearing masks. Not fast food masks we have right now, like on their faces, right? And they were at a game. I'm like, oh, okay, so that means wearing masks in the office, on the bus, in transit, it has happened before, and people are able to overcome it because of masks. So before before we add more information, we could refer to that and say it worked to some extent back then, right? And we have similar thing happening right now, so it can help us at least reduce our openness to this, right? And so it is important that data might be unavailable for now, for the next, maybe for this generation, but data is so important that well after our generation, we could be saving the third generation, fourth generation down the line, okay? And so that's why it may be unavailable, but it's not deleted. Let me just put it that way. Does AI have access to our cloud database? It all depends on the infrastructure of your cloud provider, right? The cloud providers spend a lot of money on security, on cutting-edge technologies, on the latest, right? I'm not sure a particular, maybe say for government agencies, right? I'm not sure that companies or individuals are able to be on top of that game to that level, right? So if your infrastructure is not up to date, a web crawler will access your network, your website, right? So AI are able to accept your provider is on top of his game when we talk about security and data protection. Like I said earlier, in this day and age, with the right technology, with the right brains, right, nothing is impossible. But then our job is to keep doing the best that we can. The one you can undo, transfer that to the best provider you can find, right? And then we'll move on from there. All right. Thank you
very much. Although there's another question for you, but I noticed Madio's facial expression when you said all data belongs to the government. So I don't know if to say anything.
I know it's a touchy point, right? Because of privacy and go, but I like to be a realist, right? Do you understand what I mean? If you said the data is not available right now, what organization or who is the best person to keep that data till 50 years time, till 100 years time, when we're able to use it for the benefit of the community? It's the government, because that is the entity that spans generation and that is saddled with the responsibility of maintaining the welfare of everybody in a particular given generation. So everything still comes, boils down to the government. And this is the reason why government and governance is very important. Why good people cannot shy away from participating in governance and in government, in politics and governance, right? Because a lot stops at that desk. A whole lot. We might want to agree with it, but it is the facts of the matter. So, thank you.
Thank you. Madio, are there any ethical considerations around that statement about all data belonging to the government?
I mean, unfortunately, it's the world we live in, right? But like he mentioned, that's when governance comes into play. Unfortunately, our government hasn't really been able to separate powers. Issues of state and issues of politics still get intertwined. So really, our data is going to be used for whatever purpose the government or the prevailing government sees fit, you know, so that's just the world we live in. But should it really be that way? Is that how it's supposed to be? That's another question.
I think that fits into a follow-up question for you on the chat box. How can international community or organizations regulate data breaches, regulate data leakage, and promote ethical use of data?
I was worried somebody would talk about this because it's a very controversial topic, you know, like we just said about data belonging to the government. But I think international organization could just start by having some sort of an agreement on the existing national or regional laws around data. You know, we need to develop an international treaty on a wide range of issues, such as the definition of personal data. We can't just agree on what that is. We can agree on the requirements for consent. We can't agree on what data should organizations collect and what data should be processed and what data shouldn't be collected. So we need to just start by agreeing on that. And I think that's one area where we can really make a difference. And then just promoting the use of data encryption and other security measures. Personal data should be de-identified, in my opinion, you know, especially when it comes to issues of health or just any sensitive data. And then a lot of organizations walk away scot-free from data breaches. So we need to actually hold organizations accountable where there has been violations of data protection laws. And this could just be simple things like imposing fines or actually requiring organizations to notify people when that data has been breached. You know, it's always weird when you give this company data and you have to hear about the data breach on the news. You know, why can't you at least just notify us of what's going on? You know, if there's been a malicious attack to your data warehouse or something, you actually owe it to the individual's consent to notify them. And yeah, I think that's about it.
Lastly, how would you rate international organization compliance to data protection and privacy, especially working across different countries that may need to interact, and each of these countries have different data protection laws that may not be the same or that may be unique in different ways. So to what extent would you say global organizations trying the development sector adhere to data protection and data privacy regulations?
I think we try as much as we can to be clear and transparent about what data we are collecting, how it is going to be used, and with whom we are going to share it, which is a lot more than I can say for many people. We always try to share information in a clear and concise, you know, with clear and concise privacy policies that are easy to understand for anyone. Sometimes I go into an organization and I have to actually sign over my data and I'm like, I can't even understand what I'm reading. So we try to make things as simple as possible in that regard. And we always obtain informed consent from users before collecting or using that data. You know, that means that we make sure that we provide users with all the relevant information about how that data will be used. And you always have a choice whether you want to provide consent or not.
Thank you. Thank you. So we can take a break now. Let me go to Dr. Taiwo. So I think there are two questions for Dr. Taiwo on the chat box. First one is, as a lecturer in business administration, can you explain how students can be trained on how to generate valuable data and data protection? And the second one is, do you think that the current university curriculum is sufficient to train students on valuable data collection and protection? Dr. Taiwo, back to you.
Okay, thank you. You now see, like, in business administrations, there are a lot of courses that was actually designed by NUC that we simply help a business administrator to have the knowledge of data valuation on how to generate data. You have courses like management information system. You have courses like big data analytics. You have courses like research methodology. Those are three major courses in business administrations that simply help in generations of valuable or valuations of data. You see, you want to generate data. You can generate data in two ways. You either generate it through primary or you generate data through secondary. And you will now see, like in business administrations, we majorly make use of the primary data through questionnaire, interview, and observations. Why that of the secondary has to do with those that emanate from maybe Bureau of Statistics, CBN, statistical bulletins, and the World Bank's database. So you can simply generate a valuable data from some of these components. So you now see, in terms of the protection, it will be very, very difficult for business administrators to teach how we can be able to protect data. And that is why you see, like management information system, we normally hire an expert from computer science who teaches the course so that students can be able to know how to manage their data and how they can be able to protect that. So there are areas for that. In terms of the curriculum, I can say kudos to NUC. In this current session now, we are starting with what we call CCMAS. Like in my university, we resumed this week. For the 100 level students, we started with the CCMAS, and this CCMAS was developed by an expert. It gave us 70%, and the school was given an autonomy for us to add 30% of our own, some of the courses that we felt that are supposed to be in the curriculum that are not there. And we have done that. And I think in Africa now, as far as education is concerned, with CCMAS, they are all giving us kudos to our new curriculum. Areas of data analytics as it relates to business making business decision. I was part of, I'm the chairman for my department. In terms of our 30% the signing of the curriculum, we have added some important courses that will simply help students, that will help them to think in terms of critical thinking, that will give them an entrepreneurial skills that even when they are out of the university system, without them being employed by government, they can be able to use such initiatives to be able to have an establishment of their own. That is what we have done as far as the academics is concerned. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Taiwo. Really appreciate that. Ms. Gladys, are you still with us? So there's a question for you on the chat box. Is Ms. Gladys still with us?
I am.
Oh, okay, nice.
I'm here.
So can you list areas or industries where anyone interested in, anyone with data analytics skills can add value? Any specific areas or industries?
Okay. Based on everything we've heard today, we know that data analytics is important in almost all industries, but just to list some, the healthcare industry, in our medical, in our hospitals, we need data for to support clinical decision making, right? We need data for security. It will help you be able to detect if you're able to detect unusual activity and then alert those who are in charge of ensuring that people are safe. We need it in manufacturing, in getting your clients' perception on products, understanding client purchasing behavior. We also need it for communication. You cannot effectively communicate without having data to back up your communication. You need to have statistics, you need to have numbers so that people are understanding exactly what you're saying. the way that your bank is able to reach out to you to say, no, we've noticed unusual activity on your bank is because of data analyzed over a period of time, or for research to be able to gather data that would help decision making in different areas. So data you can apply, contribute.
There's still another question for you, not in the chat box, but in my own personal box. So what relevant tools would you recommend for someone interested in data analytics? And how accessible are those tools, especially for an African person? Ms. Gladys, can you hear me?
Okay. I know that data analytic tools can. Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. So I know that there are certain softwares that are a bit expensive for anyone who is trying to start out. However, we have open resources. But let's not even go very far. We have Excel. Excel seems like a very common tool, but it's also very powerful. You can start from the very basics to advanced data analytics with Excel. We also have, I personally make use of SAS. While the SAS software in itself is expensive to purchase, there's a website called SAS Studio where you can sign up and have access to the online version of SAS, and that can be able to help your data analytic journey. Also, we have Stata, but Stata, you would need to purchase that. We have R. R is a bit more accessible than SPSS also. The last one I would like to talk about is SQL. Yes. So those are tools that you can use to start, but I would say start simple. Start with something like Excel. Those ones you can start from there and then graduate to other ones.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So to Dr. Taiwo, when speaking earlier, you mentioned about how data analytics can be used in the HR hiring process. And now we have the trending issue of the Japa syndrome.
Yes,
a lot of people are leaving the workforce in Nigeria, and banking sector, the tech sector, telecommunication sector are suffering from tech talent shortage. So is there a way that data or data analytics can be leveraged to drive employee retention among companies?
The issue in essence is that, one thing in HR is that HR must pay serious attention to attritions and retention. And that is very, very key and very fundamental. And also in HR, there's what we call exit management. Exit management is also very, very key. And most of the organizations are faulting in this area. They allow their employees to leave without having a communications with them. And that is not good enough. And that is the problem. And that is why the attrition rate in Nigeria now, particularly in terms of health sector, in terms of educational sector, and even computer information system and law, the attritions are very, very high. The reason is that most developing countries do not pay attention to their attritions and retention. And that is why data analytics must majorly focus on this. Let us know in an organization how many people are out, how many people do we retain, and this should be done annually. And exit management should be able to give us a focus, because when you ask people the issue of Japa syndrome, a lot of my friends, they're out of the country. I think one just left last week in my university and is in UK now. So now you now see that by the time you ask them, majority of them that are there, one key aspect or challenging is that we are facing in developing country is all about inadequate compensations to the employees. And most organizations do not pay attention to this. And I'm very sorry to say, because I have also worked in private organizations, you will now see that most of the company owners, what they are just after is just about profit without even looking at the workforce. And that is what is causing. Even in government, you see today, a lot of people are living in the health sector and there is no replacement for them. Government do not care about these people that are living. They don't care. All what they want in essence is that even when you go, they'll be replaced. In terms of private organizations, the private organizations have this mentality, particularly by the time you are getting to a higher position. They feel that even if you are out of the organization, they can easily get a kind of lower person that can do what we call replacement. And something that is also lacking that we must know here is that succession planning is also missing in most of the organizations. In most of the organizations. I have to tell you today now, based on my position as a lecturer, the roles, my responsibility, everything that I carried out, I don't have any, maybe someone that I can be able to show that, okay, these are my roles, these are my duties that I'm doing. So if I'm leaving, you take over. None. So meaning that most of the functions, activities, and roles that I'm doing, if I'm out of the organization, for instance, today, they may find it very, very difficult. That is just some of the problems. So there should be a strategy. HR professionals should be able to bring out strategy to the organization that has to do with how do we deal and solve the issue of attritions and retentions. And that is a major problem that is very fundamental now to most of the organizations in developing country, because when they have that opportunity, they want a better pay, they want better conditions of service, better conditions of work, and a lot of it. And I want to tell you, an employees may not even care moving from one organization to another just because of difference of 20,000. So individuals, organizations that must HRM must pay more attention to this area. And it is killing, particularly in the 24th century. Because you see, even most of those graduates now, that are graduates, when you ask them, they'll simply tell you, I want an organization that they can be able to pay me well, they can be able to do this. And that is why you now see, because those organizations are not available, you see them going to all this era of cybercrime and a lot of them, that they can be able to make it within a very fast period of time. We need to work out, particularly Africa, need to work out on this area, what they can be able to do to retain their best and to ensure that the country continue to move forward. Or else, if nothing is done to this area, frankly speaking, in the next century, we are going to have a brain drain as far as Africa is concerned. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Taiwo. Now, away from employee retention, let's look at the production management system of a company or a business. Yeah. How can data analytics be deployed to optimize production management in a particular company?
Okay, you now see, when we talk about production management, we are talking about managing the entire productions or service system that has to be with converting of input to output. And this production management involves 6 critical or principal areas. And these principal areas are in terms of men, money, we call them the 6 M's, materials, methods, machine, and marketing. These 6 areas must be concentrated upon if you want to optimize production management process in business. So now, looking at the question, we look at examples. The major examples that we can simply cite here are majorly in terms of manufacturing organizations. manufacturing organizations, and you now see that data analytics help manufacturers to uncover some of the defects in their processes. You look at the speed product development, you look at how they can be able to improve on their product quality, and at the same time, how they can also reduce variations in terms of their quality. So you look at various examples in terms of, one, their process manufacturers. And these process manufacturers, what they use is what we call a predictive analytical tools. And they simply use it to assess in order to make up maybe some of their chemicals, their minerals, and other raw materials so that they can meet up with production requirements. Then another area that is very, very critical you look at is the chemical manufacturers too. The chemical manufacturer is also a very good example because they use data analytics. They do what we call compare and measure the effect of their various productions in terms of their inputs and so on and so forth. Their carbon dioxide, their pressure, temperatures, the yields, so that they can be able to cover the unexpected or deficiency that may have an impact on their output. Another area, a very good example, is the pharmaceutical industry or manufacturing. So you see these aspects, they see what they can be able to create in terms of Jesus Christ.
Is everything okay, sir? Okay, I think probably his laptop is low or something. So I'll wait for him to join us again. Let me ask Madio. Recently, I think about almost over a year now, we have the Russian-Ukraine war that is ongoing. And some hours ago, there's news of the Israel and Hamas engaging in, I think some gunmen in Hamas launched a surprise attack at Israel. So is there a way that data analytics can be used to ensure, to drive peacekeeping and humanitarian effort, especially in crisis area across the globe?
So peacekeeping missions and humanitarian missions are broad in terms of their thematic areas of operation. You know, there are people who deal with child protection, there are people who deal with just conflict-related sexual violence, there are people who deal with disarmament, military mediation, and electoral assistance. I think Nigeria just had elections, and a couple of weeks back it was Zimbabwe. And depending on the intelligence or information that peacekeeping missions may or may not need, they deploy resources depending on what the situation is on the ground. And that's just one of the many areas where we need data to act. You know, someone here mentioned the cost of infrastructure needed for this kind of setup to work, you know, in terms of different geographical locations. And it's no secret that we depend on funding that is and has always been limited. So data analytics has definitely been a welcome development within peace missions because traditionally it's just difficult to, you know, keep track of what's happening where in the world. So international organizations have always kind of like been reacting to rather than anticipating what was going to happen. So I think we are really benefiting from peacekeeping missions in terms of peacekeeping missions are benefiting from data analytics, you know, because we're becoming more data-driven and just that's just allowed us to be more forward-looking and anticipate what's going to happen rather than reacting to events that happen on the ground. Another area that early warning through data analytics can be of great added value is through deployment of peacekeepers. You know, when you know when violence is most likely to take place, then you allow the leadership of peacekeeping missions to just deploy resources and peacekeepers where they're most needed well in time to protect civilians. And sometimes it just helps to preempt threats to the mission itself before they actually happen in terms of mediation. So I think this is one area where maybe we are not using it to the extent that it can really benefit us, but it's definitely a welcome development.
And thank you very much, Madio. Thank you. Olamide or Farouk, please help us to reach out to Dr. Tayo to be sure that he's fine. Probably a phone call or something, just to be sure that he's fine.
All right. Oh, he's here.
He's back.
Is there? Welcome back, sir.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I lost out of the something, so I have to fix it. I'm very sorry.
It's okay.
Those are the problems we are facing in developing countries.
Thank you. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have roughly 5 more minutes. I don't know if there are any other questions. You can still drop them in the chat box for us. So I think we'll just probably do 2 more questions, then each of the panelists to give their closing remarks. So Ms. Gladys, are you with us?
I'm here.
Okay. Would you say that are there any specific downside to data analytics that we need to be careful about, or some certain things that we need to be cautious about when dealing with data analytics?
I'm guessing you're talking in terms of data security.
I'm guessing so.
Okay. So I'm just going to leverage on what Mr. Ebenezer has said. He made a statement that stuck with me. He said it's irresponsible to think that all data should be put out there or is for everybody to see. And so that is one side of data analytics that we need to pay attention to, ensuring that every data that is collected and analyzed is secured enough that it's only those who need to see it that have access to it. Data security is very important. While we are all raising eyebrows at the fact that all data belongs to the government, I've heard more surprising things. In where I work, every time we gather data, these are eventually go. We are told from the very beginning this is government property, and so I believe that everyone who is going into data analytics needs to go in with that mindset that eventually all the data is going to be for the government, and you need to collect it in a way that is ethically sound and protects the interest of those who you are collecting the data from. And even when you're analyzing and sharing the information, ensure to share the accurate information and not tamper with the data in any way when it has been analyzed.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That was insightful. Mr. Ebenezer, are there any specific trends that you foresee in cloud data storage for data analytics in the next few years? Are there any particular trends that we should be on the lookout for?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. One of the first things I said earlier today was that technology is ever evolving, right? And so if you're operating in the technology space or any related technology, you should always watch out for trends. And and by the time you feel you have a handle on one, I can assure you there are better and more coming up, and so there is a need to keep note of them. One of the things I would like to talk about is edge computing integration. What does that really mean? So beyond just analyzing data, there is a need to know where data are most useful and store those data close to them. And I will explain further. Because for performance, we will all talk about performance. You need to access data easily. You need to do all of this. There is a huge performance when you're analyzing big data. For someone, if I'm in Abuja and the data center I'm retrieving data from is in North America, compared to if it's in Kenya or Tanzania or Botswana or in Ghana. You know, so there's a need to, there is this, and using analytics to know this sort of data, even though we're storing this in Europe, but it is mostly consumed by people in West Africa. So what they're trying to move at now is to move copies of those data very close to the consumers, you know. So the term for that is edge computing integration, to store it close to where people who need it, who need to consume it. And another thing is I want to talk about is quantum safe encryption. Not to forget, one of the things I failed to mention earlier in terms of security is that cloud providers provide security for data both in transit and at rest. Okay, but you know, when you're trying to guess and break in and hack into a system, human beings can do so much, but computers can do a whole lot more, right? Quantum computers can provide a lot of programming and manipulations in a very short period of time. So that means if someone gains an access and is using quantum computing to hack into a system, all right, it's a challenge out there, and so the world is moving towards, okay, if we're gonna, because quantum computing is going to be cheaper. Computers and computing is getting cheaper by the day. The phones we can afford now, we couldn't even have access to them some 6 years ago, right? And they are powerful devices. And so that tells you that even very soon, an individual can have access to powerful computing. And what if that person have malicious intentions, right? So in cloud computing industry, the cloud providers are already moving towards making their services quantum safe, making their encryptions to the level where it's difficult for quantum computing hackers. You know, it's still a trend, like you said. All these are trends that the industry is doing. Also, I won't fail to talk about AI, right? You know, AI is important. It's making our lives better. But like every other thing that has a big advantage, there's always a disadvantage. Okay, and so for the most part, I would say that there's still talk about what is the best way to store AI data. You know, we've gone from transaction processing, systems that need to process data immediately in real time, but AI is a whole lot more than that, right? And so while we're still using the systems we're using, talks are into what way do we go to optimize storage for AI-powered applications, systems, and storage. So these are just some, but like I want to repeat myself. If you are in any industry that is related to technology, any at all, right? It is important that we keep updating ourselves because technology changes. You've seen companies who were leading in the industry, but no longer in the top 5. I'll give you just 2 examples. Before, I'm sure most of the people here have used BlackBerry before. They were research in motion, were top. Where are they now? Back in the day, I remember when Yahoo was top and they wanted to buy Google. And Google said, give us $1 billion and we'll sell the company to you. They said, no, that is overpriced. Now you always know where Google is on top, right? It's what happened to anything, even if you're a teacher, you're an ed practitioner, you as an educator, whatever it is you are, and as linked to technology. Please always look out for this trend, and not just look out for them. Think about how you can plug yourself into that space and offer some value. Talk about quantum safe encryption. I've talked about optimizing AI storage. Maybe I need to begin to study into AI and how I can offer some value in that aspect. That should be the question and the takeaway I would want to leave with everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that also includes your closing remark. Briefly, for 30 seconds each, I'll start with Madio, then Dr. Taiwo, then Ms. Gladys. For 30 seconds closing remark. Ms. Madio, the time starts now.
I think we all agree in the room that data analytics are important to make data-informed decisions. So in closing, I just want to talk about data inequality. Nigeria is not experiencing the data revolution at the same rate as Botswana or any other country. There's unequal access to and the use of data around the world. So that's a big concern for me, especially where we come from. We still need to develop the infrastructure in terms of, the systems themselves and the people. So I was very happy to hear Dr. Taiwo talking about integrating data analytics in the curriculum. So I think there's hope after all.
Thank you. Dr. Taiwo.
Oh, thank you. What I just need to say is that HR practitioners all over the world must now pay more attention to data analytics with respect to their workforce. And as soon as that is done and integrated, I'm sure there's a brighter future for HR practitioners in this country and the world in general. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Lastly, Ms. Gladys.
Thank you. I would just like to reiterate that quality of data is very important. Quality data leads to quality results and helps make better decisions. Bad data leads to inaccurate results, and that will affect decision making. So if you have any chance or opportunity to collect data, ensure that the data is being collected in the best way possible that will help decision making without any tampering. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Mr. Ebenezer, let's not be as if I'm leaving you out. There's something else you want to say? Are we good to go?
All right. Thank you for this opportunity. Just to say that data analysis is what everyone does, right? I mean, we are all creatures of habits, and habits means we do something repeatedly, and that means that we generate data. Now, do we capture enough data? That's another kettle of it, but we all generate data, right? I think that a takeaway I would like to leave with everyone, even in our personal lives, say, take finances, for example. If we take time every day to capture data, it will even help our individual lives. Say everything, people talk about budgeting, just don't look at data analytics as the thing the government needs to do, or NGOs need to do, or big companies need to do. Your family, try and see, how can you capture data? When you begin to do that, now you begin to think about how to process and how to stop. But the important thing is that you would see the need, right? The value that data analysis offers, and you begin to benefit from it from a personal level. And when you do that, it spreads to your family, your circle, your company, your work, your career. And I think it's what everyone should look into and actually take seriously to influence the quality of our livelihood. Thank you.
Thank you very much to all our panelists. It has been a beautiful session so far, I believe. For my own closing remark, I'll close with a quote. I started with a quote, so let me close with a quote by a data analyst at Setogin, just known as Radin. We said data analytics is the future, and the future is now. Every mouse click, keyboard button press, swipe or tap is used to shape business decisions. Everything is about data these days. Data is information, and information is power. So thank you very much for this beautiful session. I will rest my case and hand over to Olamide, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Sami. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Sami, for that brilliant insight. And I want to also thank everyone that came to this webinar to attend the webinar. I'll hand over to Mr. Farouk as well to say his thank you.
Thank you to all our panelists for this valuable insights. We really appreciate you. I thank you for accepting our invitation for this webinar. We are grateful. And until next time, bye, and you have a great weekend.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.